Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's sort of an album bomb week, just probably not what you expect. And it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Here is one of the most stark observations of this week, and if this isn't tangibly a sign that things have changed in the Hot 100, I don't know what is. Zach Bryan's EP had more album impact than Doja Cat. Yes, some of this is inevitable given the precarious nature of her label supporting her and that project, whereas Warner is throwing all possible support behind Zach Bryan. But even with that in play, it seems like the popular tides are shifting in a direction I would have never expected. Certainly not to this degree. Now, look, I don't want to oversell it, especially when you consider our top 10 and what of course rebounded to the number 1 based on the strength of her album, Paint the Town Red by Doja Cat. Now, to be fair, I'm not sure what's exactly going to stop it. Dominant on sales and streaming, with radio surging, it was going to beat all the competition here. The closest of which is probably Snooze by SZA number 2, which saw its radio growth slow pretty abruptly and not quite pick up the streaming it would need to penetrate or close any margin. Then we got Fast Car by Luke Combs at number 3, which having peaked on the radio, absolutely now feels like it's on the downswing. And while in a different time that could have opened up a lane for Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift up to number 4, she lags on both streaming and the radio and can't quite close those margins, especially in October. Then holding steady, we got I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves at number 5. The streaming has held incredibly strong, and that makes up for the radio being painfully slow to get on board, and again, in Nashville, money is just being left on the table here, as well as the slight recovery for Last Night by Morgan Wallen at number 6, mostly because a good streaming week compensated for its radio collapse. Also holding steady, we got Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo at number 7, which the radio might be dumping pretty quickly, but had a surprisingly good week on streaming. And either way, it was enough to hold up its margin over Fuck You Mean by Gunna at number 8, which might be stable on streaming for now, but just could not make more headway in order to close that radio gap. Then re-entering the top 10, we got Calm Down by Rima and Selena Gomez at number 9. It's definitely losing radio, but probably slower than you might expect. And then holding up at the very bottom, we got Dance the Night by Dua Lipa at number 10, because while the radio is dropping it, it's got enough of a margin there to slow its collapse, and the radio is not going to get rid of it that quickly. And that neatly takes us to our losers and dropouts, of which the majority in the latter category comes with the Rod Wave album bomb, with the biggest probably being Fight My Feeling, which is going to miss the year-end list. But we also saw Where She Goes by Bad Bunny likely going to clinch its year-end list spot for 2023, with it being a little more nebulous for Put It On the Floor Again by Lotto and Cardi B, along with Bury Me in Georgia by Kane Brown, and it's not going to happen at all for Fiend by Travis Scott and Playboi Carti. That's a good thing. Now, for our losers, we can chalk up to album bombs that are taking body blows with excess that are still lasting a little bit longer than one might expect, especially in the case for Rod Wave for me, as Boys Don't Cry hit 46, Come See Me's at 48, Call Your Friends at 50, Turks and Caicos with 21 Savage at 51, H64 at 71, Long Journey at 75, Nostalgia with Wet at 86, Crazy at 91, and Checkmate at 97. Then we got Olivia Rodrigo's album bomb loss, with Get 'Em Back falling to 34, All American Bitch at 56, The Grudge at 64, Lacey at 84, Making the Bed at 93, Logical at 94, and Love is Embarrassing at 100. Then we got Zach Bryan first album bomb losses, with only a couple, with Spotless with the Lumineers at 80 and East Side of Sorrow at 95, and the rest, well, Bongos by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion really is not catching on at 44, but the larger surprise might be Slime You Out by Drake falling to 12, which really seems to be fading from popular conversation more quickly than I expected, especially with that album coming up fast, and of course it's going to revive, but as a single, I just don't know. Now, that all comes to the implications that we are between album bomb weeks, or at least traditional album bombs, and that makes our gains and returns a little tougher to gauge, especially their longevity. In the latter group, On My Mama by Victoria Monet clawed back to 99, Standing Room Only by Tim McGraw picked up to 96, and Demons by Doja Cat saw its album bomb boost only to 92, but our gains are all over the damn place, and I have no idea how much any of this is gonna last. La La by Mike Towers recovered all of its losses to 59, time. And while I'm very pleasantly surprised that Strangers by Kenya Grace got a nice boost off the debut to 63, Lil Boo Thing by Paul Russell also saw a jump off the debut to 74. Most of the rest of these seem like beneficiaries of radio stability, like What It Is Block Boy by Doechii and Kodak Black at 32, or Good Good by Usher, Summer Walker, and 21 Savage at 36, although probably got a nice boost by Usher's Super Bowl halftime performance announcement, and I gotta say, he's well deserving of it. Or Daylight by David Kushner at 37, or Save Me by Jelly Roll and Lainey Wilson at 47, or White Horse by Chris Stapleton at 57, or Girl in Mine by Parmalee at 81. Now, as for the exceptions, I Know by Travis Scott at 35, mostly because it still has streaming behind it, and El Amor de Su Vida by Grupo Frontera and Grupo Firm at 72, but that actually has more radio than you might expect, backing it up for a little stability. For how long, I've got no idea. But yeah, we do have a lot of new entries this week, and precisely none of them fall under album bomb qualifications, so we're going to be talking about all of them. Unfortunately, starting with number 98, Can't Have Mine by Dylan Scott.
Talking about babies makes her happy. Yeah, take it from me, that's the kind you need to find. You just can't have mine.
Okay, seriously, how in the nine hells has Dylan Scott stuck around into 2023? I was covering this guy back in 2017, and I thought being stuck on Curb Records meant that his career was doomed, but really it just translated into 6 years between albums, with this being a late single from the project that came out over a year ago. And okay, it's not as bad as it could have been, where he's trying to convince one of his single male friends the right girl is out there, but said friend can't have his girl, and the song is generally produced okay enough with the warmer, more organic tones, although for some reason they crowbar in a fake snap and program percussion onto the hook when it's really not needed. You didn't have to do that. But I think my larger issue is that Dylan Scott just cannot sell this. He's got a very brash, loud energy that feels like the poor man's Brett Eldridge with no subtlety or restraint, and that just makes the song fall really flat for me. Not the worst thing he's ever done, but this is nothing worth caring about. Next, number 88, Heaven on Earth by Lil Tecca and Kodak Black. Okay, maybe it's my fault that I'm this surprised that Lil Tecca managed to nab slots off of his recent album. I liked Ransom back in 2019 more than most, but are folks really still checking for him? Now granted, with this song we can probably tack up the reason it charted to Kodak Black, or because it's vaguely catchy because the song is rooted in a pitched up sample of Lil Tecca squeaking the acronym for Heaven on Earth, which is HO. And the exasperating thing is once you get past that bad one conceit, the rest of the song is either very flimsy or very incompetent. Lil Tecca is trying to assert loyalty and not to think too hard or he'll hurt himself. Pretty obvious in hindsight. And then Kodak Black comes in with one of the worst verses I've heard in the past couple of, weeks. A flow that sounds like he's fallen all over himself, focusing more on threatening his ops than any women in the flagrant defiance of the song's concept. You want to be focusing on women here, dude. And then saying that he feeds a bad bitch baby food and has them on his macadamia. And with the production being nothing all that distinctive or interesting, this is lousy in a way that has me questioning why on earth anybody still cares about for more Lil Tecca. Let's move on. Not good. Number 83, Segun Quien by Maluma and Carin Leon. So I've said in previous episodes that of the regional Mexican crowd, I like Carin Leon more than most, and going back a couple of years, I've also been kinder to Maluma, so this was a team up where I actually had something close to expectations. Hopefully they would have good chemistry. This could work well, and oh dear, I'm not sure this works at all. And let's get the production issues out of the way first. The staccato farty horn line against the rickety acoustics have very little in any way of groove, and they don't cater to the smoothness that I know that both of these guys can credibly sell, as well as a weird synth glaze sitting behind the hook that is just distracting as all hell. But then, when I translated the content, honestly I was tempted to call this a joke song, where these guys are ardently denying that that they aren't over this girl because one of their friends tipped off said girl that they were being drunken messes shouting her name at the bar, and they're very much not obviously over her. But the joke feels very poisoned by how sour and petty this track is, especially by the second verse. It's just ugly all the way around. Maybe it was my mistake expecting more from these two. I really did not like this. It's a bad song. Let's move on. Number 76, My Love, Mine All Mine by Mitski. You know, after multiple albums where Mitski was slowly pivoting in a pop direction for a larger audience, it's the spare, Americana-leaning love song in 2023 that goes viral on TikTok and lets her cross over. Go figure. And I won't lie and say that it's weird that this is her first debut here and not, say, the only heartbreaker, but if we're gonna see it, this is one of the better tracks off that last album that I just did not like as much as everyone else did. I don't love the live-sounding vocal arrangement and pickup, but that is nitpicking for a song with some gorgeous pedal steel and gentle piano touches for that vintage country ballad feel. And I think it should be stressed that this isn't really a love song so much as it is an entreaty to a higher power, that if she winds up perishing in some way, her love is the one thing she can always cling to as being hers alone. Half metatext as the love also underlines the passion that goes into her art, half just deeply sincere and heartbreaking as she feels that she can be sure of nothing else but this. Again, not quite my favorite from the album, but it's the sort of track that is so refined and so tasteful that it almost doesn't feel like it even belongs on the Hot 100. It's still great. I'm happy it's here. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Number 66, Pain, Sweet Pain by Zach Bryan.
Keep on going, you'll sing right.
Alright, we got 5 Zach Bryan songs to get through, and since I've already reviewed the EP on my main channel, I'm going to try to get through these relatively quickly. Starting off with the one track on the project that I'm a little less fond of, the closing track. That does not make it bad, I should stress this. The fiddle sounds good, I like them ramping up the tempo into a more bluegrass-inspired rollick with the acoustic guitar, and the overarching sentiment of trying to get a friend to forgive his past transgressions and then extend some help to him as he realizes that he might be better off just heading on home. It's good. I just think I'm cooler on the hook that probably just needed a little bit more development to punch a little harder. It's still a good song, but just in comparison with the rest of the EP, not quite a great one. I just don't love it as a closer. That's all. Number 65, Un Preview by Bad Bunny. Looks like we're getting more teasers of that Bad Bunny rollout for the next project after Where She Goes, with this being a swerve back into reggaeton with Tiny handling the production for a sound that we've honestly heard a lot less of on the Hot 100 this year if your name's not Karol G. And you know what, calling it a preview is probably smart, as this feels more like an abbreviated teaser for whatever's coming next than something that's very new, or a single that's gonna go off as he tries to be coy with this girl that he's dancing with. The likelihood of falling in love again is at the forefront, where he's probably being a little bit sloppier in the hookup and any other partner she might have around than's probably wise. I think if I have something that loses me on the track, it's actually the melody. It's this grainy, chiptune-esque sound that might kind of fit for the abrasive atmosphere. It's just not a tone I like. It doesn't sound as good as it should. Again, it's more of a teaser than a full-fledged song. It is passable, but the follow-through is going to be what's interesting, so I'm at least intrigued for that. Number 62, One More Time by Blink-182.
One more time. One more time.
Okay, I'll say it. The mini pop-punk revival of the early 2020s seems like it's stalled out way too soon, especially if all of this is just going towards a new Blink-182 project when there are so many other acts that are considerably more interesting that Travis Barker seemed to be pushing, and then all the promo just evaporated. What the hell happened? But hey, Tom DeLonge is back. The band is leaning into making a predominantly acoustic, if overcompressed, pop-punk ballad, talking about their reconciliation as a band and the tragedies that brought them all back together having changed over the decades. And Okay, you know, I'm not the biggest Blink-182 fan, y'all know this, but I do get why a song like this would have a lot of resonance for longtime fans that have been desperately wishing for this sort of reunion. So yeah, it's a good song. Probably will have a lot more resonance for diehard fans, but I also can't deny it works. Check it out. Number 60, 500 Pounds by Lil Tecca.
I'm starting to feel like it's us. No trust, so do as you must. For real, don't know when I stay out of town. I get done when I stay out of town. 500 shots, I got 500 rounds. 500 plots, I got 500 pounds. Yeah.
So I guess this is the Lil Tecca song that folks are getting behind to push with any degree of hype, and I don't know, I'm not hearing it with this. The oily chiptune synths behind the rickety, cheap-feeling percussion with that crunchy snare that seems like Lil Tecca wants to split the difference between trap and rage music. And then you got the content. Honestly, it's just messy between half-formed flexes, paranoia, and this weird underlying sense of confusion where it seems like half the time Lil Tecca would rather be doing other things than putting on this show, where I'm not even sure if he knows what he wants. Yes, I know, it's somewhat catchy. Lil Tecca can at least do that, but there's not much here that's pulling me back. I don't think this has the same staying power as the song you can call his hit. Let's move on. Number 55, El Jefe by Shakira and Fuerza Regida.
Gustos caros, la mentalidad. Solo te falta el salario.
Am I the only one kind of disappointed that for as active as Shakira has been in 2023, it's been in a lot of collaborations and dallying around in other sounds? Maybe it's just me who remembers what she did 20 years ago, but I wasn't really looking for her to go into the regional Mexican sound, much less with an act that I don't think I like at all. So okay, credit to Shakira for showing up to basically carry this against the much faster strumming, where the bass actually has more bounce and the horns are less obtrusively farty and annoying. I mean, Shakira's got considerably more charisma and verve, and while Fuerza Regida's frontman is trying, there are levels to this, come on. But then I translated the lyrics, and I couldn't help but bursting out laughing because it's trying to play like this exasperated working class anthem for folks whose lives are kind of shit working for the boss man, for those who have expensive taste but are going nowhere in their careers, along with Shakira taking a pot shot at her ex-father-in-law. Oh, so now when you get indicted for tax evasion, you want to play this card. I'm not sure that's how the revolution works, Shakira. Anyway, look, I don't think I can call this precisely good, but it's more than I usually like a Fuerza Regida song, and Shakira is always welcome, even if it all feels incredibly silly and stupid. I'll take that at least. Number 54, 9 Ball by Zach Bryan.
But I got myself a steady hand. He's sitting in the corner with a six-pack of Corona, betting that his son will win again.
Alright, we got a swath of Zach Bryan tracks to get through, and let's start off with the one that's probably the most conventional off of those of the EP, or most familiar. The acoustics build into the harmonica, strings, and electric guitar, the vocal pickup is rougher, and Zach Bryan is telling the story of a parent who pushes his son to win games of pool to settle his drunken bets, while ignoring what that son might really want to actually do with his life. And it's a moment that actually kicks off the thematic arc of the album, where that child has bigger dreams and talents than just hanging around the local bar, where the tragedy might come in whether or not he chooses to leave his family behind. Now, I'm not sure this has the gut punch of an Oklahoma smoke show. Zach Bryan's tread this material before, but it plays in the same territory, works really well, just perhaps not as well as number 45, Deep Satin by Zach Bryan.
Westbound to the sea, when you see the lights, when you hear the rain, is there any chance you're thinking of me?
The penultimate song on the EP, where Zach Bryan winds up in New York City having rejoined a partner there, and what you can tell is that despite following her there and the heady intoxication of her and the trip, yeah, it's not working. Partially because he's kind of a homesick, staggering, drunken mess, but also because that's kind of how her friends see him, and he knows he can live down to that reputation, and that's not good for anyone. And that kind of works for a track with the mournful electric guitar peeling across that deeper mix with the thicker royal, the bass, and the sharper percussion. It's more composed, exposing where he is not. So yeah, I think this is a great song. I don't know, I still think Zach Bryan can get better. Number 26, Boys of Faith by Zach Bryan featuring Bon Iver.
With some boys I used to know, we're trying to get our pockets up. This year has just been moving fucking slow.
The title track, arguably the most simple song on the EP, but one that had me most intrigued. Justin Vernon's unique vocal texture does not work well with everyone, especially on a song that he did not produce. Now, this is a road song where he's looking at the folks who have kept the faith, even as men like him tend to fade into their own vices along each step of the tour. Deep Satin proved that. Whereas Zach Bryan can sell this in his sleep, but Justin Vernon's a really good counterweight. But what most impressed me here was the production. The intermingled fragments of electric guitar with just enough feedback left in the mix to add some texture to Vernon's willowy but faded vocals, where the rough edges on that vocal mix add to the camaraderie even as the elegant waves of strings swell up behind them. It's just this really cool texture and just gives them a very different sense of chemistry. But again, it's a good song. Still not quite my favorite on the EP, but excellent all the same. Absolutely worth hearing. Number 18, Agora Hills by Doja Cat.
I wanna show you up, I wanna show you up, I wanna brag about it, I wanna tie the knot, I wanna show you up, I wanna show you up.
Full disclosure, when RCA and Kemosabe began making that serious push to get Doja Cat her #1 for Paint the Town Red, I honestly thought she'd have a credible shot for a proper album bomb, but it looks like someone at the label didn't push the Spotify button, so this is the only new debut that she gets, and not exactly one of my favorites from the album, beyond the exasperating reality of this being another entry into the leaden category of Doja Cat trap and R&B, where the sample feels flattened out and the bass swamps the mix, and I think Doja Cat's only so-so in this lane, especially when she has to rely on her rap a little harder, like on the second verse. For all the push that she was making for this more abrasive, anti-commercial project, this is the furthest thing from that. Outside of it, well, at least on the first verse, Doja Cat really wants to show off her new partner, and I'm not as against the whole I don't fuck incels line, given the sheer amount of bullshit certain shitholes on the internet have thrown in her general direction. But what kind of threw me were those sampled spoken word pieces that pepper the song that are trying to be cute, but end on a weirdly sour note that he might be lying to her. Just feels tonally confused. I'm not sure if it works. As it is, look, I don't know. I have never really liked Doja Cat's R&B material. Not sure this impresses me either. And finally, number 14, Sarah's Place by Zach Bryan featuring Noah Kahan.
Those backyard lights don't shine as bright without your face. Out of Sarah's Place.
I get the feeling that a lot of folks are going to be annoyed with me for years to come for being as harsh on Noah Kahan as I was in his review of Stick Season last year, because he's doing a lot of heavy lifting to rehabilitate his reputation with me, mostly through his collaborations. Dial Drunk with Post Malone, taking Rustin Kelly on tour with him, that upcoming remix of She Calls Me Back planned with Casey Musgraves, and now this? Yeah, he's got incredible chemistry with Zach Bryan. It's the best song on the EP, and you know, I really like how the song starts off with a slightly more conventional acoustic guitar line as they trade verses and that tempo begins ramping up, and that sharper snare and the electric guitar interplay as they've got these pleasant but very longing reminiscences about an old partner that left for the city and what they've needed to do to actually keep up, and there's some really good vocal harmonies here too. There's this shaggy, homegrown vibe I found really quite charming, where they could have actually played for the guilt trip. Noah Kahan might have on hell, he did it on Stick Season, but this is more settled and complimentary and mature. It reminds me a lot of LAX by Jake Owen, arguably his best ever song. So yeah, it's absolutely excellent. Not my favorite from either act, but it is up there. And if they're going to keep on spurring each other's careers, that could be a big win. All I'm saying. And that's our week. Yeah, it did feel long, but not unapproachably so, and the best and the worst, they fell out real fast. In the latter category, I'm giving the worst to Segun Quien by Carin and Maluma. Just a total disappointment there. Whereas Dishonourable mentions Going to Heaven on Earth by Lil Tecca and Kodak Black, where I had no expectations to even meet. Now the best, okay yeah, Zach Bryan is sweeping this, with Sarah's Place with Noah Kahan taking the top spot, and Boys of Faith with Bon Iver. That's gonna tie for honorable mention with My Love, Mine All Mine by Mitski. What can I say? When she makes it hit, it hits. Now the next week might be a bit quiet, as I don't think that new Ed Sheeran album is going to give us an album bomb from his newly indie label, but if we get a bit of a breather before Drake, I will take what I can get. But until then, I'm Mark, You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. I'll see you next time.